A sequel after 30 so years. My goodness. Welcome back to another review, everyone, and it's this weekend's Top Gun Maverick, the much hyped film. I mean, this was supposed to be coming out like 2 years ago. Tom Cruise really fought for it to be released in the theaters, and rightfully so. It was worth the wait. Now, again, is it perfect? No, there are some parts of the story that could have been done better, but overall, it basically is perfection. And the heart of it, Maverick, that character, it's still there. And that was the thing that they needed to make sure that it works. Because in the first movie, we saw Maverick. We didn't see Tom Cruise as this legendary actor. Yeah, he was still Tom Cruise, but he was still on the rise. So we saw the character Maverick. And it comes through really well in this movie. The story has evolved. Years has gone by. His character has evolved. But at the heart, he is still Maverick. And they needed to portray that, and it was portrayed really, really well. Second great thing, and the best thing about this movie, the flight sequences. I'm just going to say, my goodness. Like, the way they're filmed, some of the stuff they've done with the planes, the action, it's breathtaking. The scenery, the stuff in the back, the whole visual aspect of it. I watched in the IMAX with some great sound, and it was mind-boggling. Some of the stunt work that they pulled, it's dangerous, and they did it. There are some special effects, no doubt, but it's for sequences where they really, really need it. You can't do it. Let's just say you can't do it to like real life people. So I'm not gonna spoil anything. So you have to use special effects, and that's where they show up. Other than that, the stuff that you see is real. The planes, the everything, it's happening, and the way the camera work is done, the way the cameras are placed and where they're placed, you're like, those are the pilots, and they're feeling that speed. They're feeling the G's, and they're feeling the pressure, and oh my goodness. And it's all real. And I'm not going to say the moments, but there are actually some moments, if you look at behind the scenes stuff for this movie, there are moments where stuff happens and it should not have happened, but they kept it in the movie. And it's all there. And it's like, wow, they did this, really did this. And that's what makes it so, so good. And you feel the action because you know it's all real. It works. And that was the thing that they needed. Again, with the character Maverick and this, they needed to nail those things, and they did them perfectly. The story is good. It is what it needed to be. It's very similar to the first one. There are a lot of callbacks to the first one, but the callbacks, they work within the story. It's not just for the sake of like, hey, we did it in the last one, so we're doing it in this one too. It's not like that. It's very much its own story, but it also respects the first one. The one thing about the story, though, it's not a negative, but it's kind of there, is that I do hope, or I do wish there was a second movie between Maverick and the first one. And this would have been the third movie. Because there are times where the characters are talking, and they're talking about stuff that, happened last year or some other time. And you just have to go with it. And the things they're talking about, it would have been interesting to see these characters grow. Because it's just like, oh, those characters, they're not new in the life of Maverick. They're new to us, but it's just like, okay, things been happening. Some of the relationships with the character Maverick, some of the relationships that he's involved in, they just show up, and you're like, okay, well, we just have to adjust to whatever is going on. So you do feel a bit of that. So you do feel like there should have been another movie before this. The relationship in this movie, though, that's where the negative comes in. The love relationship actually was okay. The first movie was very integrated into the story. You understood why it's there, why it's happening, and why it's so real. In this one, it's not as strong. You understand why it's there and why they needed to have that kind of a love relationship in this movie. But if you actually take out that whole thing, that movie doesn't really change. So, do wish they spend a bit more time in kind of like developing that relationship just a bit more. It still has some jokes. It's some old school jokes, and they work. And there's some humor in it that works. But again, that relationship, the story could have been just a bit better. And the second bit I have are basically the students, these fighters that are there at Top Gun, and that whole thing could have been better. Now, what I mean that is in the first one, you have like the Maverick team, Goose and Maverick. You have the Iceman. People follow him, and there are people who follow Maverick, and there's that clash between these two parties. This movie starts off with that. It introduces that. It has a good thing going, and then there is a very particular scene. It really builds up, but then they just leave it, and it's just kind of okay. Everything is fine. So that whole thing, the first movie definitely did better. You could have built it just a tad bit more than what we have here. It just kind of just fades away. Other than that, though, the movie is what it needed to be, and it works. And after 30 years, like a sequel and being this good, that's what makes it so much better. That it's this good, and it had no right to be this good, and it still is. And that's what works. It was worth watching in the IMAX. If you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence, you will get your money's worth. It's definitely a must watch. I had a great time. I watched in IMAX. It was absolutely stunning. So that's kind of my take on this one. What did you all think about this one? If you have watched it, if you have not, after you watched it, come back and leave a comment below. Let me know. And other than that, yeah, thank you for watching. Thanks for all the support. Hope you like this review. And yeah, I'll see you all soon. Until then, ta-ta, peace out.